What if the boy you raised in the shadow of the world's most famous wildlife warrior suddenly stepped out of that shadow and became someone you almost didn't recognize? That's exactly what happened to Terri Irwin. And when it did, she was completely and utterly overwhelmed. We're talking tears. We're talking gasps. We're talking a mother watching her son transform in ways she never saw coming and feeling every single emotion all at once. If you think you know the Robert Irwin story, think again. Because what's been unfolding over the past year is something far more layered, far more poignant, and far more extraordinary than most people realize. And it all starts with a family still carrying a grief that never truly goes away. Let's go back to the beginning, because context matters here. When Steve Irwin, the legendary crocodile hunter, died suddenly on September 4, 2006, after a stingray's barb pierced his heart during a filming trip at the Great Barrier Reef, he left behind a wife and 2 children who would have to figure out how to carry an enormous legacy while also just learning how to live. Bindi was 8. Robert was just 2 years old. He would grow up barely remembering his father's voice, only knowing him through the footage the world had seen 100 times over. Terri didn't just survive that loss, she built something. She took over as chairwoman of Australia Zoo, led wildlife warriors, raised her children in the public eye, and did it all while telling every interviewer who asked that she had already found her happily ever after with Steve, and that no chapter of her life could compete with that one. She dedicated everything to preserving what her husband had built and to raising the 2 children he had called, with tears in his eyes, the proudest achievement of his life. So when Robert Irwin started to transform, it wasn't just a celebrity moment. For Terri, it was something deeply personal. Something that made the love, the grief, and the pride collide all at once. Here's what people don't fully appreciate about Robert Irwin's 2025, the sheer scope of his transformation. This was not a gradual, quiet evolution. In the space of just 12 months, Robert went from being widely regarded as a charming young conservationist working at his family's zoo, known mainly to fans of the Crikey. It's the Irwins television series, to becoming one of the most talked about young men in the world. And the metamorphosis happened in real time, on screens across the globe, with his mum watching from the front row. It started with an announcement in April 2025. Robert Irwin would be competing on season 34 of Dancing with the Stars. For anyone who knew Steve Irwin, the man who once described himself as having absolutely no rhythm, the idea of his son stepping into a ballroom competition felt almost surreal. But Robert wasn't just going to participate. He was going to win. Throughout the season, something happened that nobody quite predicted. Robert didn't just learn to dance. He learned to be vulnerable. Week after week, he opened himself up emotionally in ways that were breathtaking to watch. He described it in his own words after the finale, telling The Hollywood Reporter that the experience was about trust and vulnerability, about letting go of the filter, letting the emotions rise to the surface, not caring whether he was crying or laughing, just being fully present. He said, "Here's the heart on the sleeve, take it or leave it, there's a great power in that." Audiences around the world took it enthusiastically. And Terri Irwin? She was there for all of it. One of the season's most emotional moments came during dedication night, when Robert performed a dance specifically for his mother. He choreographed it with partner Whitney Carson as a tribute to Terri, to the single parents of the world, to the women who hold everything together when it seems like everything has fallen apart. He said afterward on Instagram, "This dance was a story of love, loss, grief, and gratitude. It is a thank you message to my mom, it was to pay tribute to all the strong mothers of the world, and the single parents." The dance was set to Phil Collins' ballad "You'll Be in My Heart." And there was Terri, in the audience, watching her son, the little boy who was too small to remember his father, dance out the grief of an entire family, the gratitude of an entire life, on national television. She was not dry-eyed. She was not composed. She was a mother being seen by her son in the most profound and public way imaginable. Backstage, she admitted to reporters that her body was feeling it, that both she and Robert felt like they were kind of falling apart from exhaustion and emotion. But she didn't want to be anywhere else. Her Instagram post after Robert's victory said it all: "Congratulations, Robert. Your passion, dedication, hard work, and kind heart got you to this point. A night you will remember forever. Thank you to everyone who supported Robert through this journey, and made us realize that even a zookeeper can learn to dance." Simple words. But behind them, a lifetime of everything. On November 25, 2025, Robert Irwin and Whitney Carson were crowned the season 34 champions of Dancing with the Stars. The finale received 72 million votes, double the previous year's record. Robert finished with a near-perfect score, earning 2 perfect marks during his final performances despite competing with a rib cage injury he had sustained before the finale. He became the first Australian male contestant to win the series, and at 21, the youngest male winner in the show's history. And here's the detail that made the moment feel almost cosmically significant: he won exactly 1 day shy of the 10-year anniversary of the night his sister Bindi had won season 21 of the same competition. The Irwin siblings became the first celebrity brother-sister pair to both be crowned Dancing with the Stars champions. Bindi was in the audience that night, cheering him on. Terri was beside her. And when the confetti fell and Robert lifted the Mirrorball trophy, the cameras caught a mother who had given 2 decades of her life to keeping a family together, watching it come full circle. The tears were not tragic in the conventional sense. But they carried everything that the word tragic can mean: loss, time, grief transformed into something beautiful, a life lived fully in the face of unimaginable heartbreak. But the transformation didn't stop at the ballroom. Even as he was competing on Dancing with the Stars, Robert was expanding his professional footprint in ways that would have seemed impossible to predict even 2 years ago. He co-hosted Australia's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here alongside Julia Morris, earning Logie Award nominations for Most Popular Personality and Most Popular Presenter on Australian television. He starred in Tourism Australia's Come and Say Day campaign, a piece of content that amassed over 374 million views worldwide. He attended the premiere of Tron: Ares on the red carpet in October 2025. He joined the board of directors of Wildlife Warriors. Talent agencies were calling him a publicist's dream. The New York Times praised the way he embraced emotional vulnerability. The Guardian described his presence on Dancing with the Stars as a genuinely wholesome shot of joy. The Sydney Morning Herald called his story an extremely positive story in an otherwise overwhelmingly negative news cycle. Steve Irwin once said, in a video his own son would later share on TikTok, that the proudest moment of his life would be when his children were ready to take the football that I call wildlife conservation and run it up. He said it with tears in his eyes. He said, then, and only then, will I know that I have achieved my ultimate goal. Robert is running faster than anyone expected. And in a direction that even Steve might not have mapped out, through ballrooms and film sets and television studios and conservation boards, spreading the message with every medium available to him. And then, just when you thought the transformation story was settling into something triumphant, Robert pulled one more move. In early January 2026, he posted a TikTok video. He'd had a week off filming and had let his facial hair grow out. With characteristic mischief, he trimmed it down into a full mustache, channeling Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation and Tom Cruise in Top Gun, and walked onto the set of whatever project he was filming next, bracing himself for the reaction. Terri's reaction? Screams. Laughter. A sarcastic definitely when asked if she wanted him to keep it. It was pure, delightful chaos, the kind of moment that reminds you that underneath all the accolades and transformations and emotional DWTS victories, this is still a family. A mother and a son, laughing in a zoo, probably surrounded by animals. The mustache was temporary. The transformation is not. What Terri Irwin is witnessing right now is one of the most profound experiences a parent can go through, watching a child step into their own. Not into the parent's shadow, but into their own light. Robert has always honored his father. He wears the khakis, he handles the crocodiles, he speaks with the same passionate urgency about wildlife that made Steve Irwin a global icon. But he is doing it his way now, with vulnerability, with artistry, with dance, with laughter, with a TikTok mustache that makes his mother shriek. And somewhere in all of that, Terri Irwin, who has not dated since Steve's death, who says she already had her happily ever after, who has poured every ounce of herself into her children and their mission, gets to see the result of all of it. The grief she carried alone. The year she ran the zoo and led the charity and raised 2 kids in front of cameras while the world watched. The strength it took to keep going. She gets to see it in her son's face when the confetti falls and the crowd roars and Robert Irwin holds a Mirrorball trophy with tears in his eyes and his mother in the audience. That's not a tragic transformation. That's what love survives into. And Terri Irwin, in tears, overwhelmed, exhausted, proud, wouldn't have it any other way.